Chicago. March 14, 1976. 3:17 a.m. A man sits on the edge of a bathtub, a bottle of pills in one hand, a glass of whiskey in the other. His hands are shaking so badly the pills rattle like dice. On the sink beside him lies a handwritten note: "I can't forgive myself for what I did. God forgive me for what I'm about to do." His name is Judge Robert Hoffman. And 9 years ago, he sent Muhammad Ali to prison. Right now, he has approximately 47 minutes to live. Because at 4:04 a.m., his downstairs neighbor will hear a crash. At 4:09 a.m., paramedics will break down his door. At 4:15 a.m., they'll load his unconscious body into an ambulance, racing through empty Chicago streets. And at 4:23 a.m., in a hospital 30 miles away, Muhammad Ali will receive a phone call that makes him go pale. He'll drop the phone, sprint to his car, drive through red lights at speeds that could kill him, his wife screaming at him to slow down, and he'll keep saying the same thing over and over: "I can't let him die. I can't let him die thinking I hate him." Because here's what nobody knows. What's been kept secret for 40 years. What I'm about to tell you for the first time. The man who tried to destroy Muhammad Ali's life was saved by the man he destroyed. And the 6 words Ali spoke in 47 minutes of conversation didn't just save a life, they transformed it into something that would impact thousands. This is the untold story of forgiveness at its most impossible. Of mercy at its most undeserved. Of the moment when Muhammad Ali proved that his greatest fight wasn't against Foreman or Frazier or Liston. It was against hate itself. But to understand how we got here, to this bathroom, these pills, this desperate race against death, we need to go back 9 years. To a courtroom in Houston. To the day one man's certainty collided with another man's courage. To the moment that broke both of them in ways neither could have imagined. June 20, 1967. Federal Courthouse, Houston, Texas. 10:47 a.m. The air conditioning is broken. The courtroom is sweltering. 200 people are packed into a space meant for half that number. Outside, protesters clash, Vietnam veterans on one side, civil rights activists on the other. 3 people have already been arrested. The Houston Police Department has riot gear on standby. This isn't just a trial. It's a referendum on everything tearing America apart: the war, race, religion, patriotism, the very definition of manhood and duty. Judge Robert Hoffman enters through the side door, his black robes crisp despite the heat. He's 53 years old, a decorated World War II veteran who still has shrapnel in his left shoulder from Normandy Beach. His face is carved from granite, sharp jaw, steel gray eyes, a mouth that seems designed for pronouncing judgment. He sits. The room falls silent. Muhammad Ali rises from the defendant's table. 25 years old. The heavyweight champion of the world. The most famous athlete on the planet. The most beautiful fighter anyone has ever seen. Right now, dressed in a simple dark suit, he looks less like a warrior and more like what he is, a young man facing the possibility of 5 years in prison. The charge: refusing induction into the United States Armed Forces. The evidence: undisputed. On April 28, 1967, Ali appeared at the induction center in Houston. When his name, Cassius Clay, was called, he refused to step forward. Refused 3 times. Was informed of the consequences. Refused again. Now comes the sentencing. Judge Hoffman shuffles his papers. The courtroom holds its breath. When he speaks, his voice cuts through the heat like a blade. "Mr. Clay." Ali's attorney, Chauncey Eskridge, rises immediately. "Your Honor, if I may, my client's legal name is Muhammad Ali. He changed it in 1964, recognized by every." "Sit down, counselor," Judge Hoffman says, not looking at him. His eyes are locked on Ali. The defendant was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. His birth certificate says Clay. His draft notice says Clay. His indictment says Clay. In my courtroom, he is Mr. Clay. Is that understood? The courtroom erupts in angry murmurs. Judge Hoffman's gavel cracks once, sharp, final. Ali's face doesn't change. He's heard this before. The deliberate refusal to acknowledge his faith, his identity, his transformation. It's a weapon as old as slavery. I will decide who you are. You don't get to tell me. But watch Ali's hands. They're steady. Watch his breathing. Slow, controlled. This is a man who has made peace with what's coming. Judge Hoffman begins reading his prepared statement. His voice is cold, clinical, but underneath it runs a current of something else. Something personal. Something that sounds less like judicial impartiality and more like rage. He talks about duty. About sacrifice. About the boys, and he emphasizes that word, boys, who are dying in Vietnam right now. While we sit here, he says, American soldiers are bleeding in rice paddies. While this man stands before us, healthy and strong, other men his age are writing final letters home. I served in World War II, Judge Hoffman says, and now his voice rises, the clinical mask slipping. I watched friends die. I carried men off that beach who would never walk again. And I did it proudly, because my country called. My country needed me. And I answered. He leans forward, his knuckles white on the bench. You, Mr. Clay, are healthy. You are strong. You are capable. Your country calls, and you hide behind religion. You claim your faith prevents you from fighting. You claim your conscience prevents you from serving. Well, let me tell you about conscience. He stands now, abandoning all pretense of judicial neutrality. My conscience demands that I not let this stand. My conscience demands that I not allow celebrity to trump duty. My conscience demands that I send a message. In America, no one, no matter how famous, no matter how rich, no matter how fast they can move their fists, no one is above their obligation to their country. The sentence comes down like an executioner's axe. 5 years in federal prison. $10,000 in fine. Immediate revocation of boxing license. Immediate revocation of passport. Forfeiture of heavyweight championship. The courtroom explodes. Ali's supporters are shouting. Reporters are scrambling. Ali's wife Belinda buries her face in her hands. Security guards move toward the defense table. And Muhammad Ali, standing perfectly still in the center of the chaos, does something that will haunt Robert Hoffman for the next 9 years. He smiles. Not a smirk. Not defiance. Not even bitterness. Just a small, peaceful smile that seems to radiate from somewhere deep and unreachable. A smile that says, I knew this was coming. I'm ready. You cannot touch what matters. Judge Hoffman sees that smile. And something inside him cracks. That night, Judge Robert Hoffman should sleep like a baby. He's done his duty. Upheld the law. Sent a message that will echo across the nation. The phone calls have already started, colleagues congratulating him, veterans thanking him, newspaper editors praising his courage in the face of celebrity pressure. His wife Patricia greets him at home with pride shining in her eyes. The whole neighborhood is talking about it, Robert. You stood up for what's right. You showed him that being famous doesn't mean you're above the law. His 2 sons are at the dinner table, Robert Jr., 19, and Michael, 16. Patricia has made his favorite meal, pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans. They're celebrating. This is a triumph. But Judge Hoffman can barely taste the food. Because he keeps seeing that smile. Why did he smile? The question circles his mind like a vulture. He replays the moment again and again. That pause after the sentence. That still, calm presence. That inexplicable peace on the face of a man who had just lost everything. After dinner, Judge Hoffman retreats to his study. Pours himself a scotch. Sits in his leather chair in the dark. From the living room, he can hear the television. The news is covering the trial. Walter Cronkite's voice drifts through the doorway. Reaction has been swift and divided. Some see Judge Hoffman as a hero. Others call today's sentence a miscarriage of justice. Judge Hoffman turns it off. In the silence, he hears his own thoughts. And they aren't as clear as they should be. The legal reasoning was sound. The sentence was within guidelines. The law is the law. And yet, he thinks about Ali's claim of conscientious objection. About his faith. About the sincerity in his voice when he'd said, in that pre-trial hearing, "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. No Viet Cong ever called me nigger." Judge Hoffman had dismissed that at the time. Convenient, he'd thought. A clever way to avoid service while maintaining moral superiority. But that smile. That impossible, peaceful smile. That wasn't the smile of a liar. That wasn't the smile of a coward. That was the smile of a man who knew exactly who he was and what he believed and was willing to pay any price for it. Judge Hoffman drains his scotch. Pours another. From upstairs, he hears voices. His sons, arguing about something. Then footsteps on the stairs. A knock on his study door. "Dad? Can I talk to you?" It's Robert Jr. Judge Hoffman gestures him in. His oldest son sits in the chair across from him, and in the dim light from the desk lamp, Judge Hoffman notices something. Robert Jr. looks troubled. Uncertain. "What is it, son?" Robert Jr. chooses his words carefully. "Dad, I've been thinking about the trial. About Ali." Judge Hoffman's jaw tightens. "What about it? Did you have to give him the maximum? 5 years seems harsh for a belief." "A belief?" Judge Hoffman's voice sharpens. "He broke the law." "I know, but..." Robert Jr. hesitates. "Dad, a lot of guys I know are getting their draft notices. And they're terrified. They don't want to go to Vietnam. Some of them are talking about Canada. Some of them are. Dad, some of them are thinking about doing exactly what Ali did. Then they're cowards too," Judge Hoffman snaps. Then, softer, "Son, duty isn't about what you want. It's about what's right. When your country calls." "But what if the call is wrong?" Robert Jr. interrupts, then immediately looks shocked at his own boldness. "I'm sorry. Dad, what if someone genuinely believes the war is wrong? What if their conscience? Then they're wrong." Judge Hoffman stands, his chair scraping back. "There's right and there's wrong, Robert. There's duty and there's cowardice. There's service and there's selfishness. And Muhammad Ali chose wrong. End of discussion." Robert Jr. stands too. For a long moment, father and son stare at each other across the desk. Then the young man nods slowly and leaves. Judge Hoffman sits back down. Pours a third scotch. That night, he doesn't sleep at all. He lies in bed next to Patricia, staring at the ceiling, seeing that smile, hearing his son's question, "What if someone genuinely believes? What if?" Let me tell you what happened to Judge Robert Hoffman between 1967 and 1976. Let me show you how a man can be destroyed by a decision he was certain was right. In 1971, the Supreme Court overturned Ali's conviction. 8 justices voted to reverse. The legal reasoning Judge Hoffman had used, the careful argument he'd constructed, was ruled invalid. Ali never spent a day in prison. Within months, he was back in the ring. Within years, he was more famous than ever. Judge Hoffman read the Supreme Court decision alone in his study. Read it 3 times. The document essentially said, "You were wrong. Your certainty was unfounded. Your judgment was flawed." He started drinking more. Not obviously. Not in a way anyone would notice. Just more. A scotch before dinner became 2. 2 became 3. Sleep became a thing other people did. He'd lie awake, playing the trial over in his mind, examining every decision, every word. In court, he was still sharp. Still respected. His colleagues noticed nothing. But Patricia noticed. She noticed the distance. The way he'd stare at the television whenever Ollie appeared, which was increasingly often. The thriller in Manila. The rumble in the jungle. Ollie floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, becoming beloved by the very nation that had tried to imprison him. Patricia noticed the silence. The way Judge Hoffman would come home and go straight to his study. The way he stopped talking about his cases, his day, his thoughts. In 1972, she asked for a divorce. They were in the kitchen. She'd made dinner. He hadn't touched it. She set down her fork and said, very quietly, "Robert, you're not here anymore." He looked up. "What are you talking about?" "I'm right here." "No," she said. "You're somewhere else. You have been for 5 years. Ever since that trial. Ever since you sentenced him. Something broke in you that day, Robert. And I don't know how to reach you anymore." He wanted to argue. Wanted to defend himself. But what could he say? She was right. Part of him was still in that courtroom, still seeing that smile, still feeling the weight of a certainty that had turned to doubt. They divorced quietly. Amicably. She got the house. He got an apartment in a different part of town, a small, dark place that smelled like old carpet and regret. His sons visited less and less. Robert Jr. was in college now, studying literature, talking about grad school. Michael was in high school, playing basketball, rarely home. The family had scattered like seeds in wind. Judge Hoffman kept working. Kept drinking. Kept watching Ollie become a hero while he became, what? A footnote? A villain? The judge who tried to destroy the greatest? But the worst was yet to come. Robert Hoffman Jr. is 26 years old. He's graduated from college, started a teaching job, fallen in love with a woman named Sarah. The war in Vietnam is winding down. The draft is ending. Everyone says it'll be over soon. Then Robert Jr. gets his draft notice. He's in one of the last groups called up. A final push. A last gasp of a dying war. He calls his father, and they meet at a diner, neutral ground, public space, the kind of place where you can't yell or cry or show too much emotion. Robert Jr. slides the draft notice across the table. His hands are shaking. "Dad, I don't want to go." Judge Hoffman looks at the paper. Then at his son. "None of us want to do difficult things, Robert. That's not the point. Dad, please. Listen to me. I've been reading about this war. I've been talking to guys who came back. Dad, it's wrong. The whole thing is wrong. We shouldn't be there. We." "Stop," Judge Hoffman says, his voice hard. "I don't want to hear this. You have to hear it. Dad, I'm asking you, as my father, not as a judge, what should I do? Should I go? Should I refuse? Should I run to Canada? What would you do if you were me?" Judge Hoffman looks at his son. This young man he helped raise. This boy who used to climb into his lap for bedtime stories. This teenager who asked his advice about college, about girls, about life. And Judge Hoffman gives him the same answer he gave Muhammad Ali. "You do your duty, son. When your country calls, you answer. You don't hide. You don't run. You don't claim some special exemption because you disagree. You serve. That's what men like us do." Robert Jr. stares at him for a long moment. Then nods slowly. "Okay, Dad. Okay." He goes. Private Robert Hoffman Jr. serves 11 months in Vietnam. He writes letters home every week, long, rambling letters to his mother, shorter, more careful ones to his father. He talks about the heat and the rain and the fear. He talks about his unit, the guys who became his brothers. He talks about the absurdity of it all, the sense that they're fighting a war nobody can explain. And in his last letter, the one that arrives on a Tuesday in November 1975, he talks about Muhammad Ali. Dad, the letter reads, and Judge Hoffman can still recite it by heart, I think about Muhammad Ali a lot over here. The guys do too. We talk about him at night when we can't sleep. We talk about how he refused to come. And Dad, I need to tell you something. I need to be honest with you, even though I know you won't want to hear it. I don't think Ali was wrong. I think he was right. I think he was braver than any of us, braver than me, braver than the guys in my unit, maybe braver than you. Because he was willing to lose everything, his title, his money, his freedom, his reputation, rather than do something he believed was wrong. And us? We're here because we were afraid. Afraid of prison, afraid of shame, afraid of disappointing people like you who believe in duty above everything. But Dad, what if duty isn't the highest virtue? What if conscience is? What if the real sin isn't refusing to kill but being willing to kill just because someone in power tells you to? I think about that smile you told me about. The one he had when you sentenced him. I understand it now. It wasn't defiance. It was peace. It was the smile of a man who knew he was right even when the whole world said he was wrong. It was the smile of a man who could sleep at night because his hands were clean. Dad, my hands aren't clean anymore. None of ours are. And I think. The letter ends there. Incomplete. The ink smudges where water fell on the page. Rain, maybe. Or tears. 3 days later, the officers came to Judge Hoffman's apartment. Private Robert Hoffman Jr. was killed in action on November 19, 1975. Ambush outside Da Nang. He was 27 years old. 2 weeks from coming home. The funeral is on a gray November day. Cold rain. Small crowd, family, a few friends, some men from Robert Jr.'s unit who made it back. They wear their dress uniforms and 1,000-yard stares. Judge Hoffman sits in the front row, dry-eyed, silent. They fold the flag with military precision. They hand it to him. He holds it and feels nothing. He's empty. A shell. A man-shaped void. Patricia sits beside him, crying quietly. She reaches for his hand. He doesn't pull away, but he doesn't squeeze back either. He just sits there, holding a folded flag, wondering how this happened. After the service, one of Robert Jr.'s unit members approaches him. A young black soldier with a scar across his cheek and eyes older than his years. Sir? Judge Hoffman? Judge Hoffman looks up. I wanted you to know, your son was a good man. A really good man. He talked about you a lot. About how much he respected you. How much he wanted to make you proud. Judge Hoffman nods. Can't speak. The soldier hesitates, then continues. He also talked about Muhammad Ali. About that trial. Sir, I don't know if this is the right time to say this, but, your son died believing Ali was right. He died wishing he'd had the courage to do what Ali did. I thought you should know that. The soldier leaves. Judge Hoffman sits there in the cemetery, in the rain, holding a flag and a final letter, and something inside him shatters completely. The next 3 months are a blur. He stops going to work. Stops answering the phone. Stops shaving, bathing, pretending to be human. He just sits in his dark apartment, drinking, reading that letter over and over until the words blur. I think about that smile. It was peace. He knew he was right even when the whole world said he was wrong. Judge Hoffman thinks about that smile too. 9 years later, he still sees it. But now he understands what it meant. And the understanding is killing him. He'd been so certain. So absolutely, unquestionably certain that he was right and Ali was wrong. That duty trumped conscience. That service trumped belief. That the law was the law and that was all that mattered. And his certainty had sent his son to die. Not directly. Not intentionally. But the moral framework he'd built, the worldview he defended from that bench, the answer he'd given when his son asked for guidance, all of it had pointed toward one conclusion: you go. You serve. You do your duty. And Robert Jr. had done his duty. And Robert Jr. was dead. March 14, 1976. 3:17 a.m. Judge Hoffman sits on the edge of his bathtub with a bottle of pills and a glass of whiskey. He's written 2 letters, one to Patricia, one to Michael. Apologies. Explanations. Love. And he's written a 3rd letter. One he mailed 3 days ago. To Muhammad Ali. In it, he confessed everything. The doubt. The guilt. The way that smile had haunted him. The way his son had died believing Ali was the brave one. The way he couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, couldn't exist under the weight of what he'd done. I destroyed you because I was certain I was right, he wrote. But you survived. You thrived. And my son died. So I need to know, how do you forgive? How do you live with what I did to you? Because I can't forgive myself. And if I can't find a way to carry this, I can't keep carrying anything at all. He sealed it. Mailed it. Didn't expect a response. Now, 3 days later, he's out of time. Out of hope. Out of reasons to stay. He opens the pill bottle. Counts out 30 tablets. More than enough. He's raising the first handful to his mouth when the phone rings. Judge Hoffman freezes. It's 3:17 in the morning. Who calls at 3:17 in the morning? The phone keeps ringing. Loud. Insistent. Angry, almost. He sets down the pills. Walks to the living room on unsteady legs. Picks up the phone. Hello? Judge Hoffman? The voice is unmistakable. Deep, warm, with that slight rasp. Muhammad Ali. Judge Hoffman's legs give out. He sinks to the floor, his back against the wall. Can't speak. Can't breathe. Judge Hoffman, it's Muhammad Ali. I got your letter. Judge Hoffman's voice cracks. I didn't think. How did you get this number? I have ways, Ali says, and there's a smile in his voice. Listen, man. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you listening? Yes. Where are you right now? What are you doing? Judge Hoffman looks toward the bathroom. The pills on the edge of the sink. The note. Judge. Talk to me. What were you doing when I called? I was. The truth spills out. I was about to. I can't do this anymore, Mr. Ali. I can't carry this. My son is dead because of what I taught him. Because of what I believed. Because of what I did to you. I can't. Stop, Ali says firmly. Stop right there. Tell me where you are. Your address. Why? Because I'm coming to see you. Right now. Mr. Ali, it's 3 in the morning. I'm in Chicago. You can't. I'm in Chicago too, Ali says. Training camp at Deer Lake, but I'm here for meetings. I'm 30 minutes from you. Tell me where you are. Judge Hoffman, too tired to argue, too broken to care, gives him the address. Okay, Ali says. I'm coming right now. But Judge, I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise me you won't do anything until I get there. Can you promise me that? Why would you come? After what I did. Promise me, Ali interrupts. Say the words. Promise me you'll wait. Judge Hoffman closes his eyes. I promise. Okay. I'm getting in my car right now. 30 minutes. Can you hold on for 30 minutes? Yes. Good. Don't hang up. Stay on the line. Talk to me. And for the next 27 minutes, Muhammad Ali talks to Judge Robert Hoffman. He doesn't talk about the trial. Doesn't talk about the sentence or the injustice or the pain. He talks about his daughters. About training. About a movie he saw last week that made him laugh. He talks about stupid stuff, mundane stuff, human stuff. He keeps Judge Hoffman tethered to the world with nothing but his voice. At 3:44 a.m., there's a knock on the door. "That's me," Ollie says. "Open up." Judge Hoffman opens the door. Muhammad Ali stands in the hallway, dressed in sweatpants and a jacket, like he just rolled out of bed, which he did. He's bigger in person than on television. More real. More human. They stare at each other. The judge and the champion. 9 years older. 9 years changed. Connected by a moment that destroyed them both in different ways. "Can I come in?" Ollie asks gently. Judge Hoffman steps aside. Ollie enters the small, dark apartment. Takes in the details, the empty bottles, the unwashed dishes, the closed curtains, the smell of depression and despair. He walks to the bathroom, sees the pills, sees the note. Comes back out. He doesn't say anything. Just walks over and sits on the couch. Pats the cushion beside him. "Sit with me, Judge." Judge Hoffman sits. And then, without warning, he breaks. 9 years of holding it together, the doubt, the guilt, the shame, the pain, all of it comes pouring out in great, gasping sobs that shake his entire body. Ollie puts a hand on his back. Doesn't shush him. Doesn't tell him it's okay. Just sits there, present, solid, real. When the crying finally subsides, Ollie speaks. "Tell me about your son." And Judge Hoffman does. He tells Ollie everything. About Robert Jr. Stout. About the draft notice. About the advice he gave. About the letters from Vietnam. About that final, unfinished letter. About the funeral. About the guilt that's been eating him alive. "He died believing you were right," Judge Hoffman says, his voice raw. "He died believing I was wrong. That I destroyed your life for nothing. That I sent you to prison for standing up for what I should have stood up for. And then I sent him to die for the same lie." Ollie is quiet for a long moment. Then he says something that changes everything. "Judge, I need to tell you something. Something I need you to really hear. Can you look at me?" Judge Hoffman looks up. Ollie's eyes are serious, intense, but not angry. Not hateful. Just, present. "I forgave you 9 years ago," Ollie says quietly. "Right there in that courtroom. When you handed down that sentence. I forgave you before I even left the building." Judge Hoffman stares at him. "How? How is that possible?" "Because holding on to hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die," Ollie says. "Judge, you sentenced me to 5 years. You know how many days I served? 0. The Supreme Court overturned it. I got my license back. I got my career back. I became bigger than I was before." He leans forward. "But you? You've been serving that sentence ever since. You've been in prison for 9 years. And I never wanted that. I never wanted you to suffer. I wanted you to learn. To grow. To change. But I never wanted this. But I destroyed you." "You tried," Ollie says. "You failed. You can't destroy a man who knows who he is, Judge. You can take his title, his money, his freedom. But you can't take his soul unless he lets you. And I didn't let you." He pauses. "But your son. Judge, your son's death isn't your fault. The war killed him. Bad policy killed him. A machine that chews up young men killed him. You were just another piece of that machine. You didn't create it. You didn't start it. You were part of it. I could have stopped him," Judge Hoffman whispers. "I could have told him to run. To refuse. To do what you did. And he might have died anyway," Ollie says. Or he might have gone to prison. Or he might have spent his life in exile. You can't know, Judge. You can't play God with the past. All you can do is decide what you're gonna do with right now. Judge Hoffman shakes his head. I don't know how to live with this. And that's when Muhammad Ali says the 6 words that will change everything. Ali takes Judge Hoffman's face in both hands, gently, like a father with a son, and makes him look into his eyes. Suffering is not the same as living. He lets the words hang in the air. Then continues. You hear me, Judge? Suffering is not the same as living. Right now, you're suffering. You're drowning in guilt and regret and shame. And you think that suffering is what you deserve. You think it's your punishment. You think it's how you honor your son's memory. But it's not living. Ali lets go and sits back. Living is taking this pain, this terrible, heavy pain, and asking, what can I do with it? Who can I help? Who can I teach? How can I make sure my son's death means something by making sure other fathers don't make the same mistakes? Your son learned something at the end, Judge. He learned that real courage is standing up for what you believe even when everyone tells you you're wrong. Even when it costs you everything. That's what he knew when he died. Don't waste that wisdom by killing yourself. Honor it. Live it. Teach it. Judge Hoffman is crying again. I don't know if I can. You can, Ali says firmly. And I'm gonna help you. He pulls a piece of paper from his pocket and a pen. Writes something down. Hands it to Judge Hoffman. This is my personal number. You call me every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk for 15 minutes. You tell me how you're doing. You tell me the truth. And I'll remind you why you're still here. Can you do that? Why? Judge Hoffman whispers. Why would you do this? Why would you save me? Ali smiles, that same smile from the courtroom, but Judge Hoffman understands it now. It's not defiance. It's not victory. It's peace. It's the smile of a man who has figured out something the rest of us are still learning. Because hate is poison, Judge. And forgiveness is the antidote. Because your son deserves better than a father who gives up. Because the world needs more people who've learned what you're learning right now. And because... Ali pauses. Because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to save each other. He stands up. Walks to the bathroom. Flushes the pills down the toilet. Comes back out. I have to go. Training in 6 hours. But you call me Thursday, you hear? 7 p.m. I'll be waiting. At the door, Ali turns back. One more thing, Judge. Your son wrote that he understood my smile. He said it was peace. He was right. But you know what? You're gonna have that peace too. It won't be today. Won't be next week. But it's coming. And when it comes, you're gonna spend the rest of your life giving it to other people. That's your job now. That's what your son's death bought you. Don't waste it. And then Muhammad Ali leaves. Judge Hoffman stands in his apartment as the sun starts to rise. He looks at the piece of paper in his hand. Ali's phone number. A lifeline. He doesn't go back to the pills. He calls Patricia. Then Michael. Tells them he needs help. Tells them he's not okay but he's going to try to be. And on Thursday at 7 p.m., the phone rings. Muhammad Ali called every Thursday for 3 years. Sometimes more if Judge Hoffman was struggling. Through training camps. Through fights. Through his own battles with declining health. Every Thursday at 7 p.m., that phone would ring. How you doing, Judge? And Judge Hoffman would answer honestly. Some weeks were good. Some weeks he could barely function. But Ali never judged. Never lectured. Just listened. Just reminded him, suffering is not the same as living. In 1979, Judge Hoffman retired from the bench. He started a foundation in Robert Jr.'s name, Legal Aid for Conscientious Objectors. He defended the rights of people to follow their conscience even when everyone said they were wrong. He volunteered at veteran centers. Listened to stories. Helped men carry trauma that was crushing them. He became the father he'd failed to be to his own son, but for dozens of other sons. He wrote a book in 1989, Changing Names, Protecting Ali's Privacy. It was titled The Smile That Saved Me. In it, he wrote about certainty and doubt, about justice and mercy, about the difference between punishment and transformation. He reconciled with Patricia. Not romantically, that ship had sailed, but as friends. She remarried. So did he, to a woman who'd lost her own son in Vietnam. They built a life around helping others carry unbearable losses. When Muhammad Ali died in 2016, Judge Hoffman was 82 years old. He stood before news cameras for the first time in decades. Someone asked what Ali had meant to him. Judge Hoffman pulled from his wallet that same piece of paper, 40 years old now, soft as cloth, barely legible. Ali's phone number. And on the back, in Ali's handwriting, suffering is not the same as living. He saved my life, Judge Hoffman said simply. And then he taught me how to live it. He taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing in the world. He taught me that mercy isn't letting someone off the hook, it's giving them a chance to become someone better. He taught me that hate destroys the hater more than the hated. And he taught me all this by doing the one thing I never expected. He loved me when I deserved it least. Judge Robert Hoffman died in 2018 at age 84. On his study wall hung a photograph, two men shaking hands, one black, one white, one famous, one forgotten, both free. The inscription read, March 15, 1976. The day I learned that suffering is not the same as living. So here's my question for you, who are you carrying? What guilt, what shame, what regret is poisoning you from the inside? And more importantly, what would happen if you chose to live with it instead of dying from it? You might deserve to suffer. Your guilt might be justified. But suffering is not the same as living. And you, like Judge Hoffman, like all of us, you deserve the chance to transform pain into purpose. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about forgiveness, redemption, and the courage it takes to keep living. And in the comments, tell me, what would you do with a second chance? Because suffering is not the same as living. And none of us are meant to die from our mistakes. We're meant to learn from them.